Hey, good afternoon. I'm Heather Sullivan, your host of Sullivan Smart Sense. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for meeting me here every week. As you know, every week we talk about different ways to help you save money, to help you navigate this financial situation. And right now, we've sort of got such a crazy situation. We still have high inflation. We've had the interest rates raised, I think, 4 times now. We still have pretty high inflation. It's improving a little bit, but it's still pretty high. There's still talk of a recession. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to one of my favorite experts about things that you can do now to kind of prepare to ride through all of that as smoothly as possible and really get your finances in the best shape that you can. Because really, the key to doing well in the big please join me in welcoming Bobbi Rebell. She is a certified financial planner. She is the author of 2 great books we're going to talk about a little bit later. She also works with Tally. These are all great tools that can help you. So, Bobbi, it's great to have you with us. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me back. And by the way, you said you were so on target in your introduction here. There is so much going on and so much different information that's affecting us in ways that really hasn't happened before. So there's a lot of new stuff happening for people to absorb and then integrate into how they can apply it to their own lives.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot we're going to cover. So, pull up a chair, pull up a snack, and get a pen and paper because we're going to give you some great tools today things you can do that will kind of help you navigate your finances. Maybe some things you haven't thought about yet. So, let's go ahead and dive in, Bobbi. We're in the midpoint of the year right now, and I know you've talked about one of the best things people can do is kind of do like a mid-year checkup, and especially with this year you may have started with a budget at the beginning of the year, but prices keep going up. So I imagine everybody's budget looks different now.
Well, that's exactly true. I love the fact that so many of us set our goals and intentions at the beginning of the year. But the reality is, especially this year, so much has changed and so much has changed that's been out of our control and yet very much impacting us. So it makes sense to kind of do a mid-year check-in, hold ourselves accountable, but also give ourselves a break because it's important to make those adjustments. We want to be successful with our goals. There's no point in sticking to a goal that's become unrealistic based on things that were out of our control or based on the fact that we just couldn't stick to it for whatever reason. So it's a great time as we get sort of past the midway mark to course correct and put ourselves on track to reach new goals, maybe modified goals by the end of the year, feel successful, maybe give ourselves a little reward and set us up for success in 2023. I can't believe I'm saying that number, but yes.
I know. And I feel like we've been saying, oh, next year, it'll be better. We've been saying that since 2020, but every year it's like a new curveball.
Well, but it's not over yet. Look, we've had a couple really good weeks with the markets. We've got a lot of positive things happening. Gas prices have come down from their highs for most of us. We're also learning as we go through this how to adjust, how to tweak the way that we approach the things that we spend money on. We can maybe thinking, even if we're not yet taking on a side hustle, we're kind of thinking, okay, what would I do if I needed to earn a little more money? So, there's a lot of good stuff happening here too. And I want everyone to stay positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we'll talk a little bit about that staying positive too, because I think that's so important. One of the things even I've personally sort of recognized and in talking about doing a mid-year review is I kind of in my head still kept thinking things were the same. But I'm like, well, where's the money going? Where's the money going? And
Yes.
realize, well, Heather, these other things are costing you more. So even though when you're paying for it at the time, you're like, oh, this is fine. I can afford this. But when I looked at the big picture, I was like, oh, that's where the money's gone. So how can we kind of get started on kind of reining that in and getting a better handle on where we stand financially?
Well, first of all, everyone should listen to you and do take a step back. At the moment, when you're spending, it doesn't seem like that big a change. Okay, you're buying bananas, they seem like they're 20 cents more, but well, maybe that is actually a 30% increase. So when you take a step back and you look at your grocery bills over a month, over 3 months, let's say over 6 months, you do see these big changes. You don't like them, but unfortunately, there's only so much that we can control. So what you want to do is number one, focus on what you can control in terms of what's going out, your outgoing spending. Think about things like, are you using coupons? Are you using those browser extensions? Are you eating all the food that you have already bought before it goes bad? That is such a basic thing. It's obvious. And yet somehow it's so hard to do. I'm always throwing out some vegetable that's gone bad and it drives me crazy. But all of those things make sense. Make sure that you get organized with the things that you already own. And this goes to everything. It goes to clothing, especially we're thinking about back to school with your kids. Don't just assume they need all new clothing. Assess what you actually have. Do a real inventory of what you own before you buy stuff that may be at a higher price. And then, of course, so when you're thinking about sort of plugging the holes in your budget, you want to be thinking, as I said, about what's going out, but then think about what's going in. Because at the end of the day, cutting kind of stinks. Nobody really wants to be cutting and not having things and feeling a sense of deprivation. So you can do that stuff quickly and easily, but then also start thinking, where can I bring in more income? Can I ask my boss for a raise? Are there little things that people are always asking me about that maybe I can do a little bit of dog walking on the side, or maybe babysitting or tutoring, or whatever skill set you have? Maybe you're good at kind of fancying up somebody's website, or doing social media posts for a friend. Whatever it is that you're good at, that people will pay you for, that you enjoy, maybe bring in a little extra money before you really need it.
Talk a little bit about what are some of the easy things that you would suggest to cut spending, because it is kind of a pain thing. I think we as Americans, we're very comfortable, we're very used to being able to spend our money and enjoy our lives. I try to think of it as, well, I don't have to give this up forever. It's maybe for 6 months or something like that. But what are some of the easier things, or more painless things that you would recommend for trying to cut a little spending?
First of all, adopt the mindset that you just mentioned, which is that you don't have to cut things forever. They can just be for sort of a season of your life. So the easiest way to do that is think about how many streaming services you're subscribing to, or maybe your cable subscription, and think about paring back. Can you go to sort of a smaller cable package? Is your internet speed much faster than you need? Are you working from home and do you need that much power behind what you do? Do you maybe want to cut back and go to only one streaming service at a time, and then rotate through watching the programs that you like? Because you may not need them all. You can always add them back in. They will take you back. I promise you on that. You also, and I may have mentioned this, when you go to the gas station, make sure that you really need premium if you're paying for premium. Regular gasoline may be just fine. So check with your car manufacturer about that. And if they offer a lower price for cash, have a cash envelope with you so that you can pay cash for gasoline and save that money. Make sure if you are using a credit card, maybe that's a credit card where you're getting cash back when you're buying gasoline. And same thing, by the way, applies for paying cash for anything in your life that you shop for regularly. You can get those discounts. And of course, be organized with your shopping when you buy groceries. Make sure, maybe if you always have vegetables going bad, maybe be honest with yourself that really you're not going to get through the avocados that quickly, or things that go badly that quickly. Be realistic about it, buy less, or just kind of don't buy it for a little bit if it's expensive, and think carefully. And finally, think about buy nothing clubs and buy nothing groups that you may find, for example, on Facebook. If you need something, instead of going out and buying it new, is there a buy nothing group that you can check into and see, rather than splurge on something that you could maybe just get from them?
I'm totally intrigued. I would just give him some cat treats, because that's the only otherwise.
That's perfect. Well, my
Morkie,
Morkie, by the way, I will tell you, my Morkie, whose name is Waffles, who I do talk about on my podcast, she is right to the side of my camera looking on. She's very good. She's here whenever I'm on television. Whenever I'm on camera, Waffles is watching me off to the side. Occasionally she'll bark, but she's generally pretty chill.
Yeah, I've never heard her, so I love her. She sounds really cute.
Good. She's good. And by the way, make sure you take care of your pets. Make sure you always give them water. Keep them healthy so you keep those vet bills down.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I'm planning to do something soon, looking at ways to manage vet costs after my own trip to the vet recently. I was like,
it's expensive.
Yeah. Well, you touched on something that I have been curious about, because I've been seeing these groups, these buy nothing groups. Can you talk a little bit more about that concept?
So the concept is basically, a sharing economy. It's about sustainability. Very often, it's not just financially motivated. It's motivated by individuals who don't want things just piling up in landfills, which is the greatest motivation of all, of course. And there's so many things that you want to get rid of in your home that really you can't always sell them so easily. Things like furniture that are bulky, and maybe it costs money for someone to pick up. They don't always have the greatest resale market. A lot of fast fashion even. the boutiques that would sell, secondhand clothing, they're not going to want them, but yet it's such a shame to have them go to waste. Another popular thing is school uniforms. You've got the school emblem on them. If you can go into a group maybe tied to the school that your child is going to, there might be a parent there that is so happy to hand you down free uniforms for the school for your child that their child has outgrown and sometimes barely worn. So it's so important to do that. It's a much more efficient way to just have a clothing swap than in the old ways. Technology can really connect people, and it's often done in local groups. So it's very close. So of course, you also reduce the carbon footprint from transportation. So you're not necessarily sending a box of clothing around across the country for somebody, but it's a great way to kind of clean things out, get rid of stuff that you want that may not be saleable, that sometimes charities don't even want to take, and really help someone to avoid having to make that purchase.
I love that. I think I'm going to have to do a story on that and show people some of the resources available here. Well, let's talk about, we've been this big R word, of course, is still dominating the
Yeah.
headlines. The possibility of a recession. Maybe we're even in one already. How can we start preparing ourselves if that is going to happen? Because I think people's biggest fear is, what if I lose my job? What steps can we take now to try and be ready for that?
Well, you want to make sure, of course, that you have a feeling of financial security. The best way to do that is actually look at your numbers and know where you stand. Odds are you are in better shape than you think you are. So focus first and foremost on having that cash cushion. And if you don't have enough cash, that should be a priority. Even ahead of, and people, this may be controversial, but ahead of paying down your debt completely. You never want to be late with a payment on your debt, especially your credit card debt. But you do want to prioritize building up that cash cushion, even if you're not fully paying down your debt as aggressively as you might like. So do that. Also think ahead to, what skills you have that can bring in extra income, just in case, even if you're not necessarily actively doing that. Put things in place so that look on various job boards and see what would this pay if I had to do this as a side hustle because I had a pay cut or because my job was in jeopardy, something like that. Also make sure that you aren't sort of living in isolation. Be a little social. If you're comfortable and other people are, get out in person and start meeting people for coffee without an agenda. That way, when you do need them, they're going to be a lot more receptive. And when you meet with them, say things like, how can I be helpful to you? What's going on in your career? Are there things that I should be on the lookout for? Are you looking to maybe change your career in some way? And then hopefully they will reciprocate all at a time when you're not just calling them out of a blue asking for something, because that's really kind of icky and uncomfortable. I don't want anyone in that position.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I like that
Yeah.
idea. And that really is sort of good use of your time right now while things are still calm. I think when people look at, they're already spending more right now and
hmm
thinking, gosh, I need to, have a bigger emergency fund, or maybe even just
hmm
save ahead for the holidays or a trip they'd like to take. Um, any thoughts on ways to try and set aside some of that money for that rainy day?
So, Heather, a lot of people will roll their eyes at this because they kind of think they don't need it, and some may not. But the truth is, setting up a separate savings account really can work. And even within that, maybe set up benchmarks at certain time intervals. And what I've done is you can kind of set up like a vision board of your, let's say, in the case of vacation, and put pictures up where every time you save a little bit amount, these are games you're playing with yourself, but they do work. You put up a new picture of your vision, you start looking into it. Also, price out your vacation in a fully whole, total picture way. So I used to just kind of check out the airfares to a destination and maybe browse some hotels. But the truth is that it's a lot bigger picture than that these days, because you may get somewhere and there are very highly priced rental cars, or if you're driving, it could cost a ton of money just to park your car in a hotel. It could be a lot of money. Gas prices still very high, even though they're coming down. And of course, food costs once you get there could be very high. So make sure you have a full understanding of what things will cost. And then also be a little flexible, not just about the dates and the things that we talk about, but be flexible with how long you go away. A 4-day vacation to the place you really want to go to can be amazing versus a longer trip to somewhere that you're kind of like, nah, I really didn't want to be here. I'm not enjoying it so much. Go where you want to go. And the other thing that could be really cool, Heather, is if there's a splurge hotel that you've been dreaming about, but you can't afford to go there the whole time, maybe go to the more budget friendly place for a few days, do your sightseeing from there where you're not really at the hotel that much, and then spend the last night or two at your splurge hotel, really enjoying it. Take your Instagram photos there, of course. And if you can't even do that, a lot of really high end hotels do have day passes. So think about and research a day pass. to that dream destination while you're in the location, that dream hotel or that dream spa. And maybe that's going to be a great way to really top off the end of your vacation.
I love those ideas. Those are fantastic ideas. Were you a travel planner in a previous life?
No, not at all. But I honestly have done that. I have done that. I've gone to foreign countries where, I'm at a destination for a full week. I'm thinking of a honeymoon, and we couldn't do all, every night at the splurge hotel that I really wanted to go to. So we did do that. I went a couple years ago pre-pandemic. We really wanted to go to Iceland, very expensive destination, 4 nights, trip of a lifetime. So worth it. You'd be amazed. It sounds short, but you can get a lot of enjoyment from being at a place for just 4 or 5 days. It's really worth it. And that's a way to not feel like you compromised and you didn't go where you didn't want to go. You went where you wanted to go, especially because, Heather, we've been home, so many of us, for often 2.5 years, and we haven't had the time to get that travel itch, scratched. So it's a really good thing to be able to go where you want to go and make a compromise in different ways.
Yeah, I love those ideas. I'm so glad you mentioned those. Thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about credit card debt because you touched on it a little
Yeah.
bit. There are different theories on ways of paying it down. What do you feel are some of the best ways to help people try and pay it down? And let's talk a little bit about Tally and how that can help people.
So the best way to pay it down is the way that works for you. And there are ways, the avalanche where you're paying the highest at first, the snowball where you're paying the lowest balance first because it kind of gives you that mental energy. But I believe in, and those work, whatever works for you. I really believe in taking the easiest way, which is letting technology do the work. And you mentioned Tally, which is at meettally.com. They're going to analyze, you put in your information, they're going to analyze the most efficient way for you to be paying down your debt. And if you qualify, you also can get a personal line of credit. So you're going to get a lower interest rate, which these days is huge because we know how high interest rates are on credit cards. They're only going higher. So Tally can help you get that lower rate. In many cases, you can pay down your debt as much as twice as fast. And here's my pro tip though, twice as fast, always a winning strategy. But if your emergency fund needs a little more love, think about paying it down efficiently, but also using the money you're saving to build up that emergency fund and kind of take a dual approach because we do want everyone to have that emergency fund as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've done that,
Yeah.
to let people know I've done that where I've set money aside that I could, because I feel like, well, let's get through the time period and then that money will still be there. And then you can use it to pay down the debt in kind of the end of the period where you think something might go wrong. So
Right. Well, and exactly. And the thing is, you want to always be making those payments on time. That's something Tally also helps you do. Make sure you automate that so you're never late with a payment. And the reason, Heather, that is so essential with what's going on and the things that we've talked about earlier is that is the best thing you can do to maintain and improve your credit score. The number one thing that goes into it is late payments. That is the killer. Never be late. If you are looking for a job, sometimes potential employers will look at your credit. So it is essential that you prioritize keeping your credit score as high as possible, always, but especially if you think you might be in the market for a new job.
yeah, absolutely. Very good reminder. And I want to talk a little bit about, you have two books out now
Yeah.
that I think could be really helpful tools for people that are kind of needing to re-examine how they approach their finances. So talk to me a little bit about your books, and you have a podcast as well.
Oh, thank you so much for asking. So my first book was How to Be a Financial Grown-Up, and it featured stories and anecdotes from celebrities ranging from Kevin O'Leary, Tony Robbins. We had designer Cynthia Rowley sharing sort of their first awareness of how they needed to become financial grown-ups and really start paying attention to their money in a adult-focused way and getting serious about it. And then my new book, which you can see on the cover behind me, is called Launching Financial Grown-Ups, and that is aimed at parents of emerging adults, young people. So this is for people that have teenagers and young kids that are in their 20s. And it's how to help their children learn about money. Because at the end of the day, Heather, we can talk all we want and it's all good for schools to teach our young people about money. But as parents, we are the stakeholders in their lives. We're the ones that are going to be there for them to support them, to help them when they have those bumps in the road. And maybe they might have to be helping us as we get older, because things happen. Sometimes there's some role reversal, and we have to really focus on being a family ecosystem and helping each other. So we want our older teens and our young adults to really understand money. And that's what my book, Launching Financial Grownups, is about. And again, for the parents. And my podcast is called Money Tips for Financial Grownups, where we talk to industry leaders and just really smart people about how to approach life from a financial grownup perspective. It comes to personal finance tips. We did a mid-year check-in as well on the show. I recently had my stepdaughter, who's featured in the book, talking about how she was able to buy her first apartment at age 24 through a lot of really tough savings and through some smart career choices, which is something that we all talk about. We want to follow our passions, but if your passion doesn't pay, your life is going to be a little bit of a struggle. So it's important to balance those two things. So Ashley talks a lot about her career choices, why she chose one career versus another, really for the money. She enjoyed both, but she chose the one that paid more, and how those big life decisions can be important. And I think that's important for parents to talk to their children about, that it's great. You should absolutely do what you want to do, but understand that there will be financial, there'll be impacts on your finances depending on how you choose to position your career.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is something people need to think about, and maybe research and make good decisions that way too, because you don't want to end up trying to redo the career later on to be able to bring home more money. So Bobbi, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. You gave us some really great tools today. And if people want to find out more about following your podcast or maybe get one of your books, how can they do that?
So all of my stuff can be accessed. It's just under my name, BobbiRebell.com, BobbiRebell.com. And as I mentioned, Tally is at meettally.com.
Okay, great. Well, Bobbi, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. It was great to talk with you, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. All right. And thank you so much for being with us again. We will be back next week with more ways to help you save money and deal with inflation and deal with kind of helping to prepare yourself for the possibility of a recession and what we may face in the future. So thanks for being with us. Continue to send me those questions and topics that you would like to explore, and we will see you again soon.